sovereign human being. I don't have to have a lawyer, and the court should not be at a point where only a lawyer can represent me.
The word should is not going to be something the judge will process. The law says that you have a right to counsel, and if you choose not to, you can do it that way. If you say, Your Honor, I choose not to have counsel, and frankly, I don't know what the fuck is going on here, well, the judge may appoint counsel anyway, or he may let you go
and then
ahead
I'm going to fire him.
And do whatever you want to do.
And then I'm going to fire any counsel he appoints.
Well, wait, hold on.
No, I do not authorize anyone to speak for me.
Hold on. Karl, what had already been talked about before you came was that there has been, before other judges, the judges did acknowledge that he had an attorney to assist him but not represent him. But this latest judge refused to make that distinction and went back along the lines you're saying, that if you got a lawyer, he's going to do the speaking, he's going to hand in papers, I don't want to hear from you. So
well, that's the way most judges will operate, but they have the freedom to be in between, and for example, in Vermont, in Connecticut, where the heck was it, New Hampshire, maybe 6 months or so ago, I appeared in court, but not as a New Hampshire lawyer, and the other side, a Boston lawyer, came in and said, Your Honor, I object to Karl Pearson talking with the client because he's not a member of the bar of New Hampshire. And the judge said the client has a right to talk with anyone he wants to, but he is representing himself here, but he can talk with his lawyer if he wants to, but I'm not going to let the lawyer speak for him because he's not admitted. So you have all sorts of possible outcomes here, but the problem is more of trying to understand how a judge works. And the mere fact that you raise many issues of constitutionality, for a judge, that's a red flag. And no, you ought to know this, and because you've had a lot of experience. What does a judge do when faced with an issue of constitutionality of a statute?
what?
They usually just shoot it down.
They shoot it down. They avoid it. They render a decision so they don't have to declare a statute unconstitutional, almost always. So anytime you're raising a whole bunch of issues on constitutionality, the judge knows exactly what he's going to do. He's not going to rule in your favor.
Oh, hold on there, Karl. What I was...
Okay, Karl, if that's the case, then how does a citizen get a fair trial?
Whoever said the citizen gets a fair trial? I never said that.
Hold on.
Joe, I can't tell you what
Your argument to me is foolish. You're telling me, yeah, Joe, just go in there, you're going to get screwed, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Look.
Joe, I wanted to explain to you, Joe, I don't know about about New York State, but in Canada, if you go into that court system, it's admiralty law that you're walking into. And these courts are not real in Canada. They're de jure courts. They're not real.
Same thing here, Rick. It's admiralty law, and that's what I've been trying to get them to say. Tell me I'm in an admiralty court. I have a right to be in a common law court, and I want to be in a common law court. That's why I keep asking them. I've asked them. This is at least the 5th paper that I've put in saying, "Tell me the jurisdiction," and they always tell me venue. They always tell me, you're in the county of so-and-so, and the fact that we have an indictment gives us jurisdiction. That's not jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is it a common law jurisdiction? Is it an admiralty jurisdiction? Is it maritime jurisdiction? Or is it equity jurisdiction? And they've refused every single time I've asked them.
You committed no crime because under common law there is no law against growing hemp, and they know it.
I know, and that's what I'm trying to press them to. That's
no right to do it.
Got it, Rick. You've got exactly what I'm trying to argue.
Hang on, Karl. How do we change things? How does a citizen get a fair trial?
The problem, number one, is that 97% of people who are indicted plead guilty and never get a trial. And the reason that that's the case is that if they go to trial, they lose. The more money you have to spend on a trial, the longer the sentence you get. You can't win a criminal trial. It's very, very difficult. The odds are stacked against you.
Well, then
Prosecutor has a right
there
to-
is no justice in America.
I'm telling you that. I agree with you.
Okay, so Karl, Joe, Karl and I have had many, many discussions together. A lot of them are up on YouTube. And now that I'm learning about your case, for me, it's all coming to fruition in my mind, what Karl has been telling me for a long time. You also have said, Karl, and I never understood this before, that certain things require a political movement. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I mean, here, in order to have the judges be given the law that we think is correct, they are requiring that the legislature pass a statute allowing drugs. And then the courts will be happy to go along and say that drugs are great and there's nothing wrong with doing it. But the judges aren't going to overrule the statutes. They're going to enforce these statutes, and it needs a political change. And the problem is that you've got a lot of people that are heavily invested in the drug industry. You've got the prison guards. You have the census, the people dependent upon census figures with congressmen and others allocated and monies from the federal government. They use the prison population to boost the money they get. You have the drug industry that has drugs to offset drugs, and therefore the more people who are drugged up, the happier the industry is that they can supply antidotes to undrug people and then more drugs to undrug the undrugging. I mean, it's an industry, a huge industry that will be crippled. Imagine all the drug dealers that would be put out of business and the Mercedes-Benzes that they would not buy if they were put out of business. Imagine the banks and all the money that they launder, that would be put out of business too. So
You're talking about a wonderful world right now.
That's what's
But then
happening.
making huge profits is more important than our lives, is what you're telling me.
I'm not telling you that. I'm saying that this is the situation that needs to be corrected.
Okay, so
Oh, yeah.
so I just want to say, Karl, Rick
It
Simpson.
can't be corrected when the judge, when the whole legal system, including the lawyers, are corrupt. In order for the lawyers have to become part of the bar association,
They are. You know,
and they
you
got to
don't
play
have-
by rules. And
me
none
tell
of them
you
want to
what-
challenge the law. It's a dictatorship.
Let me
It's
tell
not
you what
about
happened.
freedom.
No, but listen, Karl's on your side, Joe. He's just saying what the lay of the land is. And I also want to say Rick Simpson, Karl, on his side, when he was up against the judge, he knew the thousands of cases that were healed with the hemp oil. And so he was only, in the end, charged $2,000 for contempt of court because he kept popping off when the judge would say or somebody would say something that...
That wasn't stated. They didn't
I
say
know.
for contempt of court. They just said a $2,000 fine.
Yeah.
Not one did anybody ever say that I had contempt for the court, although I had a great deal of it. But
You
just like I
got
said,
off,
when-
but the judge was sympathetic and he fined you instead of putting you in jail.
No, he didn't get off. He
Oh.
still was found guilty. You know, $2,000 fine still says you're wrong.
Well, the
They
judge
didn't
had
say,
to do that.
Rick, you're right. You're
The
doing
judge
a wonderful
was
thing, which is what they should have said.
No, Joe,
Should have said the law is unjust. That's what we're all fighting for.
No, Joe,
The law is
Joe.
unjust.
Joe, listen,
No,
listen.
it's bullshit.
Don't do that. The judges don't do that. They uphold the law.
That's why, Joe, he's talking about a political movement, and that's what I want to get around to, the importance of people showing up at
It's called
Kingston.
tyranny.
Yes, but the thing is, well, first of all, Rick, you speak on your behalf. Karl is saying that you had a good judge.
Well, I mean, a good judge. No, I don't think there was any honesty in the court system at all, as I seen it, because every lawyer and that judge, they all knew what I was saying was the absolute truth.
I know that, but the point is you didn't go to jail for 13 years or 12 years like the prosecutor wanted you to. You went away. You walked away. That's what Karl is. Karl is concerned that the judge is going to put Joe in jail and throw away the keys. Isn't that right, Karl?
Yes.
That's his concern. So Joe, he's on your side. He's tops on your side. But Karl has also said certain things take a political movement. Now, I haven't determined, is the political movement going to affect the legislature to change the laws, or is the political movement going to be so strong that there's no person that could be on a jury that would be uninformed about this and not vote their conscience? Is that the political movement's effect on which two?
Well, how about both?
Both. Okay. So again, we're talking about a lot of media and propaganda is a bad word, I guess.
Media is against this, though. The media wants to support the establishment because the media is owned by the establishment.
Well, I of course meant our media. I meant your whistle-stop.
The main media isn't going to be of much help here. They come in after everything's over. They don't point out the oil problems in advance. They only criticize people after the oil spill happens.
No, you know, even Rick said, what was that? There was a blackout, Rick. What was the term when your trial went on? Rick?
Oh, publicity or no, how did they word that? The newspapers, publication ban was put in place.
A publication ban was put in place. So not only did we not have cameras in the court, even with the media that you had, there was a publication ban. So this is what excites me, Karl, about your whistle-stop tour on your campaign for Attorney General, because I found out you can't even start collecting signatures until July.
Yeah, July 6th.
So by July 6th, you know, so if you were Attorney General, how could you work what's happening to Joe and many others? Joe is having the courage not to plea bargain, which you think without a political movement behind him is a tough way to go.
Even with a political movement behind him, it doesn't influence any judge at all. The judges are immune to this.
Okay, so
they have their jobs regardless of how much they follow the law as they see it. They keep their jobs. And therefore, they are more responsible to the establishment that put them there, and they have dinner with these people, and they're less responsible to the people they sentence.
Right.
Let's see them again.
What right do they have to judge us?
It doesn't matter. The system gives them that power, and the guns back it up.
So how are you going to change the
So then,
system?
you're right, just by what you said, you're admitting that we live in a dictatorship. We don't have fair trials.
I've never said that I like what's happening. I'm only able to understand what's happening and report to you what's happening.
Okay, if you were Attorney General, what would you do to change it?
Well, I think that the system is so corrupt at the top that you need to work at the bottom where you can effect change by going door to door and getting a movement within a single town that will purify the town as much as possible, trying to eliminate the reliance upon the improper and illegal and undesirable institutions, and try to have a reforming of the economics and the political life of the town, so they're dependent on each other and not dependent upon Red China, for example. I mean, we ought to be dependent on ourselves and be able to have an economy and try to go back to where we were. It's always the individual who's important. Individual and small business, self-employment, this is where jobs are created. It's where truth and justice should lie, rather than having and hoping that everyone can be hired by Walmart. That's the other end of the spectrum.
So as this
That's
is
where you have one person controlling everything, and that's not good. We need to have us doing our thing individually and having competition and having mutual support in the town, and we can create prosperity. Yeah.
You just said that the courts don't listen to the people, and 99% of the people are found guilty no matter what.
No,
if you were Attorney General, what would you do to correct that?
I didn't say found guilty. I have 4 websites on it. I'm a leading website in the world on prosecutorial abuse. I've chronicled this stuff. I see it, and I understand it, and I write about it. Forfeiture abuse. The DA grabs your money before he publicizes the indictment, and then he publicizes the indictment, and you're broke, and you can't defend yourself, and you plead guilty. How about that as a tactic? How about a tactic where they don't unveil the indictment until they find a judge that's sitting there in that part, and then they rush into court and say, this is an emergency, we need to have a judge immediately unseal the indictment when they find the judge that they want. They select their own judge. That's illegal. There's all sorts of practices. What about bribing people in jail and giving them a promise of getting years off their sentence if they tell what Joe told them? Do you think the prosecutor cares that Joe didn't tell anyone anything?
Carl,
they
if I
get
could ask
witnesses
you a question.
to.
The case I went through, like I said, the judge knew, the lawyers knew, they all knew I was telling the truth. I had 10 patients there ready to testify. I had also had 6 doctors subpoenaed. Some of those patients had been cured with terminal cancer. Now that judge and those prosecuting lawyers, they knew this, but yet they would not allow these people on the stand. Now, from the time I was a child, I was told that we were looking for a cure for cancer. But here's these people that won't allow the proof to be presented. So the problem lies with the corruption of the whole damn system.
You're trying to get a political
thinking very rapidly.
You're trying to get a political result out of a court that is designed to enforce law, not to change law. You have to go to the legislature with your claims.
Yeah, that's bullshit too. They go into the legislature.
They won't do it. I agree, it's bullshit.
The legislature won't listen.
Understand the system you're in. I'm worried that you don't understand it.
I understand it. I'm fighting it, But to just turn around and accept all the things you're saying, basically what you're saying is, Joe, there's nothing you can do about it. Cop to the plea. Take the least sentence.
97% are doing it. People that are well-heeled and have the top law firms in the country, they all settle. What do you think happens to the 3% that try the case? Take a guess.
Oh, most of them lose.
That's correct. So we have a 99.9% conviction rate.
That's disgraceful.
But I have been arguing that.
That's not justice.
I agree. But I'm pointing out what's happening because other people don't even know this. Nullification is one defense. If the people understood that they have a right to come back with a just verdict, even though it's absolutely against the judge's instructions, that's jury nullification. It's a right under law. But you're not allowed to tell the jury that. I could be disbarred. I could be sanctioned and put in jail for wrecking a trial if I told the jury that.
Well, they can't disbar me. I'm going to tell the jury that.
Well, they will hold you in contempt. They'll have to get a brand new jury panel.
Well, then they'll hold me in contempt.
Well,
Carl, there's another problem too here. I know in my case, when they selected the jury, I had Jack Hare's documentary, The Emperor of Hemp. And I said to the judge when the jury was selected, I said, I would like to have this jury view this documentary. And he said, well, why? And I said, well, because I don't feel that this is a jury of my peers, because they've been educated to believe that hemp is evil and all of these bad things. They don't know the truth. But if they watch this video, they will then know the history of the hemp plant, the real history. They wouldn't let me present it, and I expect they're probably going to do the same thing with Joe, because Joe wants to show them run from the cure, and I don't imagine they'll even allow it.
Well, I agree with you. They won't. They should, but they won't.
Then you don't have a jury. Where's the honest jury at?
No one said that we have an informed jury. Don't call them honest or dishonest. They're stupid. They're not allowed to know what the truth is.
They're ignorant, not stupid. Ignorant.
They're ignorant, yes.
Yeah,
No, it's not that they're ignorant or stupid. It's that the government has deceived them. The judge comes and says, you got to act on the law the way I tell you the law is.
But they don't have to.
That's a rigged trial right there.
Right. The courts will enforce the judge's right to be the only one giving instructions to the jury. If the jury comes out and defies the judge, all the judge can do is to say that I'm not going to accept this verdict, I'm going to overturn it and have a new jury. The judge can do that. But if the judge says, well, the jury has held the way they did, it was against my instructions, but I'm going to allow it to take place, then nullification won.
Hey, fellas, I think we're in a broken record.
Nullification one. That's great.
Oh.
Nullification one.
Oh, excuse me.
That's
Okay.
fantastic, Karl. So speaking of nullification winning, Rick said that in his trial, somebody saw the prosecutor coming out of the jury's chambers, and then they brought this lady in with her husband and made her swear. They said it was a really serious thing, and in the end,
Out for a mistrial.
yeah.
I'm going to get off because I want to
No.
call. I want to call my assistants of counsel, and I wanted to tell him about the paper that I just got. I have to get on this district attorney's
Okay.
letter.
Okay. See you, Joe.
Oh, wait a minute.
Bye.
Okay, good luck now.
Okay, bye.
Karl, just one second. On this jury thing, what could the prosecutor have said to the jury when this lady saw the prosecutor come out minutes before they delivered the verdict? What kind of thing could the prosecutor
What
have
he
said?
told her, it's a question of appearance. It is absolutely prohibited for him to do that, and therefore it's a mistrial if brought to the attention of the judge.
Okay.
It was brought to the attention of the judge, but there was never an investigation by the RCMP. The jury was not called in. They put this lady on the stand, threatened her with 14 years in prison if she lied, and then they had this lawyer go at her for about 15 or 20 minutes, and of course, he couldn't put a dent in her. They never disproved a word that she said, but yet the judge in the end said he thought it was just something that me and Mrs. Dwyer had cooked up to derail my sentencing.
Notice how they can change the facts. Notice how the
They're
power
good at that.
to make a finding that's contrary to fact. And then the new fact rules, and the new fact is that the DA was not in the room. That's the new fact that the judge found.
You're right, Karl.
You got an eyewitness, no investigation done, no jury called in, and that's a new fact. I don't think so, brother.
No, but that's the system. The system allows the judge to determine that fact. It doesn't go to the jury, it goes to the judge. The judge makes that determination, and he held that, I don't believe you.
Oh, right. You mean you could have just asked the jury, did the prosecutor see you minutes before
He
you
should have,
delivered your verdict?
but he should have pulled the jury and had it on record, but he probably knew that this thing had occurred
Right.
and didn't want to upset a long trial, or maybe he had
Oh, okay. So
knows what happened, but the judge could have done a better job and should have done a better job.
Rick,
But I'm found guilty because he doesn't want to be bothered doing the right thing.
okay.
The judges don't have time to render justice. There's too few judges for all the issues that we have in the world that need justice, and the judges take an easy way out. They render summary judgments and say, I don't think there's any facts at issue here. I'm going to deprive 1 million women of any claim at all, and just hold that there is no case. So 1 million women that were shortchanged in the hourly rate get nothing.
Right.
Judge has that power.
Right. Now,
But all the time.
Karl, since you're so into jury nullification, and again, if you Google jury nullification, Karl Pearson, a lot of things come up, things you've done on YouTube.
Law Mall is probably, that's the website, Law Mall, one word, Law Mall,
Okay.
LAWMALL, and the word nullification. Those two words, it'll be number one on Google.
You're definitely number one on Google that way.
Yeah.
Now, can you give us an idea of what the prosecutor possibly could have said to the jury minutes before they delivered their verdict?
Well, there's no telling. I mean, he should never have been in the room in the first place if he was. And if he was in there, he wasn't up to any good.
But the jury probably thought he was supposed to be in there.
Well, we should have found out by having each member polled and have a court reporter. If I were the defense attorney, I would have demanded that, and the judge then would say, I'm going to overrule you. I don't believe that this happened. I don't believe it's necessary. I think it's a dilatory tactic. The judges are powerful. They're the king of the court. Do anything they want.
Can this issue be revisited now, Karl, if there was a mistrial?
On appeal, if it's a timely appeal.
And then you could find the original jury and put them on the stand and say, did the prosecutor...
A timely appeal. When did it occur?
When did it occur, Rick?
Well, this is back in 2008, but I mean,
2008.
Wait a minute now. What good is there to do a timely appeal to a system that you already know is corrupt right to the core? What's the point of doing an appeal?
Why even bother to participate in the process if you're not going to try to take advantage of any possibility of getting out of it?
Karl, I watched these people bend over backwards to convict me. You think they're going to back up?
But you know what, Rick? I think you also had a lot of people in your court, and I think what Karl is saying, why quit now? Why stop participating now? You're in the Czech Republic, Canada's broken your heart. I've had my heart broken so many times, but somehow you just pick yourself up, you go on, and you're in the end you're a richer person for it. I think if there's a... What's that?
That I should go back, you're saying I should go back to Canada?
No. You don't have to go back, but I'm saying, Karl, would there be any value in a 2008 suspicion of the prosecutor having influenced the jury?
I would say that if you could get the jury to 3 or 4 people in the jury to sign an affidavit of what happened, you might be able to get a vacation of new trial on the basis of new evidence.
Okay, and how do you find these jury members?
You might have to go back and find in the records who the members of the jury were and try to locate them and get their affidavits. I mean, the jury, the record of the trial or the court records, there are records. I doubt if they destroyed them, but you have to find out how to get them.
Okay. So
I'm not saying that it's going to work even if you did that, but that would be
I know, but
a possible way.
But I also think the fact that you tried to do something like that, it's kind of like a laboratory experiment. You keep chipping away.
It often doesn't work. As much effort as I put in with all the legal skills that I have, time that I put in, money I put in, it's provided very little relief. The system is so rigid. It's so prone to come up with guilty in any way they can because they have 97% pleading guilty anyway. The minute you're indicted, you're bound to go to jail or at least be found guilty. Not found guilty, you're going to plead guilty. They don't even go through the process of finding you guilty. You merely tell the judge, Your Honor, I'm guilty, and they make you lie.
Right.
You're not guilty.
But Karl, they're doing this knowingly, Karl. Back before my case took place, they wanted me to do this charter challenge. So I gathered up 48 affidavits, and I was supposed to get a decision about a month and a half after I provided the affidavits. Of course, I never got the decision. Instead, I got a phone call from my lawyer saying the Crown prosecutor wants to offer you a deal. And I said, well, what's this about? He said, if you're willing to go into the regular court system and plead guilty to cultivation, we will guarantee you an absolute discharge. But what that really was I still had to get up and say that I was guilty of something, although I really was not. But that would have, if I had went along with them, I would have been going along with the lie. And I refused to do it. So I told them to take their absolute discharge and shove it where the sun don't shine.
You're one of the 3%. And what happens to the 3%? They get a longer sentence.
But he didn't get a longer sentence, Karl. He just got a 2,000.
He got it. Then the judge was sympathetic, and you're very fortunate.
Yeah.
Right. Well, how can we increase this fortune, Karl? That's what we want to do. We have a little seed.
We have to change politics at the local level because you can't change it at the top. When you try to change the entire state at one time, it doesn't work that readily. Even Obama, if he had been legitimate, he may have been and he may not have been, but assuming he was totally legitimate, he found out he couldn't change much at all. And he became Bush 4 pretty quickly, if he wasn't Bush 4 from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to solve all that in the near future, Karl, because the next election I'm going to run for president because I'm from Nova Scotia, and Nova Scotia is a lot closer to the USA than Kenya.
You might want to try running for mayor of a town and change the town, and if you can implement what I'm saying in a town, you can create prosperity, and it will spread, and it should kill the cancer that's hurting America. It's killing America.
I think, Karl, that's a really good metaphor. I think that's a good metaphor because that's how Rick did it. He cured his cancer, and then he started sharing it with people in his neighborhood, and it kept growing that way. I think you're right.
I mean, believe me, Karl, it's a little bit disgusting when you've seen hundreds of thousands of people healed in health, and you're put on trial because you're the one that provided the medicine that did it.
Nobody has said that our system is just, and I find that it's not just, and I write about it, and I'm trying to find ways of curing it. I don't believe you cure it by going up against the armaments that they have by confronting them directly with a judge who knows what he's going to do, and the whole establishment is going to support him in what he does. You can't confront the judge. You have to confront society.
Karl, I did confront society. In 2003, Karl, I started a campaign. I went to every political party in Canada. I went to the news, media, the big information and science shows, David Suzuki, W5, the Fifth Estate, the Canadian Cancer Society. We even went to the United Nations about this, Karl. Nobody would lift a finger.
But what you did that was wrong. You took it from the top down, and that's the mistake. You can't make an impact from the top down. You got to go from the bottom up, where you can knock on every door in a community and convince everyone in that community that you're right, and to go along with the changes. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't believe in top down. Top down is too difficult to change. They've got all the systems bought off.
You're absolutely right, brother, but I can tell you right now, back where I come from, the local towns in my area, Spring Hill, Amherst, Oxford, Parsboro, they all know what I'm saying is the absolute truth. So, I mean,
they can get control of the politics in just one town, not many towns, just one, and put in the reforms that will make them prosperous, that'll make the people prosperous, and drive the money changers and the usurers out of the town. Usury is really, money is what it's all about, basically, and usury is where they get more money for what they do than they deserve. Drive these people out of town and have the economics and the prosperity of the town shared by the people who deserve it. So we have to reorient what we do. We have to understand where these people are stealing from us, because that's what it's all about. If you look at it, the drug industry, we don't legalize it because it's very profitable to a few people. We've got to take that profitability away in some fashion. So we have to.
How much money they make? It's scary.
Yeah, we have to do it by a reform at the lowest level, where that will build up the understanding and the motivation. If we can show them that a new economy based on correctness and justice can work out. You don't have to pay tribute to all these people that have their hands in our pocket. It's driving us broke. But people don't recognize that as the problem. They don't see that all these problems that we have, BP, for example, they made billions of dollars by not putting in proper safeguards. Why did they do it, and how did they get away with it? Because they didn't want law enforcement. So when you get right down to it, what we need is law enforcement. And if you start out at the local level, because even at the local level, we could have an impact. If every locality had its own attorney general, we would start fighting back and enforcing the correct laws and creating change that way. But you can't start at the top. They've got that system, and you're not going to break into it. You're not going to affect it directly at the top. You're going to have to undermine it at the bottom.
Well, that's what I've been doing. I've been educating the people now for years, especially since Run from the Cure come out, and it is having a great impact worldwide. I mean, they're even playing Run from the Cure on national television in Iceland. So this message is getting around quickly. And I'm hoping in the near future that the people are going to stand up and demand their rights and put an end to this insanity.
You have to do it in one town, and you can get the numbers. You get critical mass in one town. Critical mass is, can you get enough voters to go with you? You can do that in a town of 5,000 people. You can't do it in a town of 5 million.
Okay, you've both made your points over and over again. Karl, let me try to play lawyer at you. Here we go. Are you ready for this, Karl?
Yes.
Let's assume that I was struck by lightning, and I decided to send a friend of the court offering to the judge who's about to apparently conduct a trial of Joe Barton. And I have it written out already. It's about 200 words, and I'll read it quick. In looking over the legal, or a friend of the court offering by Joe Friendly, in looking over the legal papers of Joe Barton and Jay Deberman in this case, it appears there is a confusing mixture of issues of law and fact. I offer this way of resolving that confusion. The court should hold 2 pretrial hearings on the issue of the constitutionality of the New York state laws prohibiting possession and cultivation of marijuana, realizing the issue of constitutionality of the laws involved should be heard as soon as possible or never too late pre-trial. The first hearing should determine if the defendants can show the court that fundamental constitutionally protected rights are at stake with respect to the laws they are charged with criminally violating. Both the U.S. and New York state constitutions should be considered, with the New York Constitution specifically including the right of liberty. Their papers have already put forth the rights of religious practice, the right to life as involved in the right to heal, and the right of liberty. And indeed, we can include, and you know my old pitch to Karl and Rick about the right to think in addition. Upon the court's hearing and then holding that fundamental constitutionally protected rights are indeed at stake in this case, the court should thereupon order a second hearing, holding that the usual presumption of constitutionality of all legislation has been overcome, holding that the burden has thus shifted to the state for them to attempt a justification of this intrusion upon fundamental constitutionally protected rights. In this second hearing, the court, not a jury, would decide whether whatever interest the state's attorney can argue are great enough, whether the court feels compelled to allow the state to so encroach upon and intrude upon the rights shown at stake. It is anticipated the court will find that instead of compelling reasons like dangers of harm to individuals and society, the actual motivation and basis of the laws is politics. For example, a free copy of Smoke and Mirrors, The War on Drugs and the Politics of Failure by Dan Baum will be given a copy to the judge, a copy to the DA, and Karl, you want a copy too? They're only a penny at Amazon.
Absolutely.
It says, so anyhow, we throw at them that it is politics up front, but we're going to say, oh, we'll let you have a hearing on it.
Here's the issue that the judge has in this kind of case. If an issue is justiciable, and sometimes I have trouble spelling that, Justiciable, justiciable, the judge can rule on it. If a question is political, the judge is not allowed to rule on it, other than to deny the request. So if you have something that is political that the legislature should be doing, that the judge will stay away from because it's not justiciable.
No, here's what I meant.
That's the difference.
What I meant by political, Karl, was a little different. What I'm saying is that the court, once the first hearing has been successful and Joe has successfully demonstrated to the court with witnesses that indeed life or death, the right to life, is involved in people being able to get this hemp oil, that once the right of liberty is involved, the court would say, boing, the burden has shifted to the state. What can the state show to justify encroaching upon individual human rights? And politics is not a good enough reason. So that's why I threw out politics. But this book by Dan...
Here's what the judge would do in a case. If there's any reasonable basis on which the legislature made its determination, the judge will probably uphold the legislature.
No, wait. Hold on there, Karl. Wait a minute. Now, when you have any reasonable basis is good enough to encroach upon fundamental constitutionally protected rights?
Well, you're begging the question as to whether or not the issue of marijuana is a constitutionally protected right. You're assuming saying that the judge shouldn't be allowed to consider otherwise.
No, wait. I'm not begging the question, Karl. I'm not begging the question. I'm saying we should have a hearing on that. We should have a hearing on whether or not fundamental constitution protected rights are involved in marijuana. You heard? That's point one of the hearing. Now, can we have a hearing on that? And could we have
the judge may, he'll listen to what you're saying and he'll rule one way or the other, but go ahead and submit it and see what he does.
Okay, yeah.
You don't have any rights to have the judge do anything. The judge will do what he's going to do, and at the far end, it'll give another ground for an appeal if he denies it.
Uh-huh.
So often attorneys throw in things that they know the judge will reject.
But Karl, the point I was trying to make by bringing
did you hear that? They know that they'll reject in order to get an appeal.
Yes, to have another basis for an appeal.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Well, ordinarily that's what happens in marijuana cases. Is the judge's chicken to get involved? It's too hot, and so it does go up on appeal, and then on appeal they have the two-step. They have the two-step hearing on the appeal level. Is there constitutional rights involved? And then, if the answer is yes, then can the state demonstrate the compelling state interest, or what you're calling the rational basis in establishment?
If you have a First Amendment issue here, certain issues are stronger than others. So that is there a compelling state interest? And I guess that really is what you want to put it in that type of constitutional issue where the state has to show a compelling state interest, as in a First Amendment case.
Oh. Yes, just like the First Amendment case, the right to life, Karl, isn't that a biggie?
Well, that would take the whole drug industry and say that there's no right to restrict the drugs for 2 or 3 years while they spend $10 million testing them.
I don't have that much problem with that, Karl, that the right to life means that the drugs have to be tested so that they aren't lethal. But I would argue in the case of marijuana, it's already a pretty settled question that marijuana is not lethal. It's incredibly mild and safe, and the ratio of effective dose to lethal dose is up there in the thousands, if not millions, right?
Joe, do you think that people generally feel that the issue of drugs is a political issue?
Yes.
Yeah, the war on drugs is political.
That's the problem. It's a political issue, even though you're trying to very skillfully redirect it into something not political, but a legal issue. The judge may just view it as a political issue, and he won't touch it.
What does that mean? Oh, he won't touch the hearing.
Oh, this is a political question. I see. Well, I think that one...
But you're good in what you're doing.
Oh, nice try, but go ahead, and we'll see if you win.
No,
I see
let
what you
him
mean.
finish.
Issue.
Yeah. Well, that's what the courts are supposed to do, is to protect the individual from the state, right?
The judges are supposed to, that the judges get rewarded with the number of convictions and the number of case terminations. It's the number that of adjudications, because the assumption is that every adjudication is just, so that the more adjudications they have, the more justice the judge has rendered. They get points for disposing of cases quickly. Disposing of a case is justice, as defined by the court system. Not how it's disposed of, but the fact that it's disposed of.
And if he disposes of it in an inelegant
justice right there. That is automatically justice in the system. They assume the judge is right.
So quantity versus quality.
Absolutely.
But he's certainly walking a fine line if he gets liability, right, Karl? He's got to have some liability.
What?
He's walking into trouble because he thinks that there's justice somewhere that he can find, but it isn't here in the court system. It wasn't built for that. It's built to have settlements, the same way that civil litigation is built to have settlements. The occasional trial is rare, but they want settlements, and the judges don't really get involved in whether the settlements are just or not. Usually, they just are happy that they have one more termination.
But part of the reason this
don't even tell the judge what the settlement is most of the time.
Okay, I see. But part of the reason the system is rigged is due to the ignorance of the people. We don't even know that our Constitution holds that the jury is equal to the Supreme
Oh, yeah,
Court.
no, the jury doesn't know that it has the power to offset the judge, and I think that is the great leveler. I think if the people knew that, and if we could tell people at the local level as part of getting a town up to speed with where they can protect themselves.
Right. So you're saying once
I mean, how important it would be to work in a locality, and that can affect justice in that locality, so we can do something locally.
So just like Rick healed
nationally.
just like Rick healed his skin cancer on his face, and he has evidence of that, you could get rid of this cancer just in one area, one little town would become a jewel.
That is, you can create a better court system in that area. Yes.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
that's,
how are you going to supply the people with the medicine when the police keep raiding you to get the support?
We're going to change. You know that I was responsible for an entire police department getting fired.
oh, tell us
I
that.
sued the town because they were issuing tickets for marijuana use, and they fined every kid that was smoking marijuana 100 hours of free service. They had to go into the library or the prison or the school system and work for 100 hours, and that way the town didn't have to pay money to get the services performed. And that's why they were ticketing people so aggressively. So I brought suit and said it was a violation of their rights for what they were doing, and the entire police department of 13 people was fired, and they hired the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office to police the town.
Wow.
Well, that's a win. That's score one for you, Karl.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Rick?
I'm just going to say I have to sign off very shortly, but from where I'm sitting and what I'm seeing with this this issue and the issue of hemp medicine and the way it's spreading, if the system don't wise up very shortly, hell's going to be coming to dinner. So somebody better start getting their act together.
That's why we need to do it at the grassroots level. For that very.
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Karl. The grassroots level. That's where revolutions come from.
I agree.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on this show. I'll get this posted, and I think we accomplished a lot.
Well, pleasure being with you folks, and I had to sign off, and it was very nice to meet you, Karl, and Joe, and Paula. I'm sure I'll be talking to you very shortly.
Absolutely, and I'm glad we cleared up the purification of the oil. That was important.
Yes. Okay, then, dear.
Okay,
we'll
bye.
talk to you again soon.
Okay, bye.
Nice talking with you.
Bye.
Bye. Any conclusions, Karl?
Yes, I think the show came. I think most of us came around to really seeing that we're arguing about the same thing from different approaches, but we don't really differ. We know there's a problem out there, and we're all trying to solve it. And some ways are less effective than others, and I think trying to solve it at the top is not a solution.
Right.
That's what the major people would try to tell us to do, is to work hard and use the political party system and stay with it, and you're going to get change. But I see that change is getting worse and worse.
Right.
It's not working the way they're saying it should. It's getting worse for the country. The rich are getting richer, and the rest of us are getting screwed.
The only good thing about it is we're able to see what's going on more clearly.
Yeah.
It's hard to hide.
If you know the problem,
problems.
it becomes a lot easier to see a solution. And I've been studying the problem, and I view it as one that is a grassroots. It's capable of being. It better be capable of being corrected at the grassroots level, because if it isn't, then we're in real trouble.
Right. Right. That's kind of the nature of this oil. It's from a simple plant. You do a simple process, and you get some really powerful results, and that's going like wildfire. People are sharing that, and I think what they were saying.
Join with all the people that have similar problems in different areas. We all have our own problems, and the fact that when we try to just solve our own problem and disregard the other problems, that these are related. A cab driver's problem is related to yours because the system doesn't correct either. And we have to correct the system to allow us to have our own problems addressed properly.
Do you know what I found out yesterday? One lawyer in California who initially indicated that maybe there were affluent people in the cannabis movement who would pay to send expert witnesses to Joe Barton's trial.
Yeah.
At the end, he said, well, you know, it's going so nicely here in California, we really don't care about what's happening in other states. And that it looks...
For the witness, by the way, under the rules, the expert witnesses should have already been identified in the report submitted and the depositions, if any, taken, so the judge would have properly excluded the witnesses anyway.
The judge would have excluded the witnesses?
Yeah, you can't just show up on the day of trial and say,
I know that, but he's trying to get that in now. And
it's too late.
How much time do you need before?
Well, when's the trial?
The 28th of June.
Oh, forget it. They need to have, they've submitted witness lists and everything else.
Like when?
Well, prepared already. They've had witness lists, I presume, and certain basic disclosures. There's been none of that here, so it would be it'd be improper under law to start putting that in, except as a rebuttal to an expert that they are using, but he doesn't know of any, I presume. They're not going to use any
Karl,
experts.
that boilerplate that he threw at the district attorney,
The boilerplate.
that would suggest that the posture of the case isn't that well developed if he's asking those kind of questions.
Absolutely. You absolutely have zeroed in that the guy is fishing all over the place and not focusing. I wanted him to focus and identify the problem, not try to ask a million questions to see if there's a problem. You're absolutely right.
Anyhow, I am going to try to submit this as a friend of the court, but I'm going to need his kind of approval to sort of adopt it as part of his own. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I'm not sure if that's true, if you need it or not.
Yeah.
His approval?
His approval.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer to
Just
that
say, hey,
is. You might
Judge.
ask a criminal lawyer
Yeah.
if anybody can file a brief in support. I believe they can without approval.
Although what I'm asking him to do is kind of procedural. You know, I'm saying.
Well, no, but you're allowed to suggest something as a friend of the court.
Okay.
You don't have to ask approval. I think I'm guessing here, but I don't see where people have to disclose their interest so the court can see where they're coming from.
Right.
Well, you did it with the amicus brief on the Howard Stern case,
No,
right?
ordinarily, I would agree with you
Right.
totally, Karl,
Right.
that you don't need anybody just a friend of the court. I was just here to tell the court what should be heard. That's ultimately going to be.
You're only advising. You're only saying, in your opinion, the court should do this. You're not asking. You're not making a motion.
Yeah.
You're really just saying that you think that the court should do this, and that would be of aid to justice, and that's all. You don't have to ask approval for that.
All right, good enough. Then I'll go do it. Another thing that came up, I got to write a letter for Lynn Stewart too, and I was thinking along the lines of just telling the judge to be brave and bright and heroic and all that kind of stuff. Have you thought of what kind of language to use in a letter like that?
Stewart's name. I tried to get the Green Party nomination a couple of weeks ago in Albany, and rather than nominating me, they nominated Lynn Stewart, but she wasn't there, and they couldn't reach her to see if she would accept it, but they were going to nominate her as Attorney General.
Oh, okay, then you'll have to recuse yourself in wondering about...
Oh, I'm not. I have no... They didn't do it. They didn't nominate her, and they didn't nominate me. They nominated nobody, and I think that's a bad mistake.
Oh, wow, they didn't have a...
Party with no candidates.
Good old Green Party.
Yeah.
But just a second, Lynn Stewart's in jail.
Right.
Yeah.
That's silly.
We all knew that.
That's totally silly.
I pointed that out, and I said, don't waste your
you-
vote that way. This is crazy.
You guys are jumping on you're jumping on Joe Barton for what he's doing, and the Green Party's nominating Lynn Stewart. That's nuts. That's
They
absolutely.
tried to. That she got votes even without. She got write-in votes. They tried to nominate her, but the nomination was rejected because she wasn't there to say that she would accept it. She had somebody who argued in her favor as if she had been there, but he said he can't really go any further because he doesn't know if she would accept it or not. Nice guy, but he was arguing against me. I was arguing for my candidacy, and he was arguing for hers.
Yeah.
but she hadn't accepted, and they couldn't find her. And I pointed out, don't waste your vote. You know, her home is going to be elsewhere. They're going to increase her sentence, not reduce it.
Well, what is the possibility of the judge saying, "Oh, you want me to reconsider, huh? Okay, I've reconsidered, and I decided to turn her loose."
It's done by a decision on the papers where the judge says that I read the papers, and I think they raise interesting issues, and here is what I've reconsidered, and I am holding as follows, and then he'll either affirm what he did or he'll change it.
You know,
But it's a decision that'll be made based on reading the papers.
You know, it sounds like sort of damage control to keep a system in. You know, Lynn Stewart, God bless all she's going through. I don't think that her issue is going to change things that much. But when the judge was looking at Rick's papers, because I've talked to Christian Lorette, who's a different breed of person than Rick. He's very detailed, very meticulous. He's the producer of this documentary. He said that the judge really spent time looking at a lot of cases, the medical cases, and it's pretty apparent that he was
Moved.
He was moved that cancer has been cured. That's a whole lot
He
different.
convinced the judge. He won that. He actually won.
He actually won. I know. It's
Well, absolutely. That's a big win for him.
yeah.
It's a $2,000 fine instead of
Well,
jail
absolutely.
time.
But
Big win. Big win. The judge could take a lot of heat for giving such a little sentence like that.
Well, yeah. But the thing is, I think the judge wanted to be right with his because we have a Holocaust going on in every single cancer ward in every single hospital in this country, and who wants to go to sleep having judged against somebody healing people, having taken them out of that misery? Part of Rick's heartbreak that you didn't hear, it happened before you got on the line, is that many of the people he healed did not want to sign affidavits and get involved. And I think that was hard on him. That after people got cured of cancer...
You know why one of the reasons would be?
They're scared.
No.
What?
They don't want their employers to know that they have that because it may cause them not to be promoted. They may lose their job. They may be afraid of the economics of having it be known that they had cancer. I think that may scare off a lot of people from going public with it.
Well, for whatever reasons people have, I think eventually when a society gets so broken down, you can expect to see different symptoms. Like Joe Barton, I know he's a little angry and upset now, and I know you're concerned for him, but I think you can predict that there will be Joe Bartons that come along, and I think at a certain point a difference can be made. You know, we don't know how many people we can get to the Kingston trial, but hopefully a penny will drop and people will say, well, okay, I didn't stand up for Rick when I could have, but maybe I can go to this trial and just be part of the crowd.
But the problem is that the judge doesn't have any latitude, really. They're not going to change all these statutes that would have to be held unconstitutional. They're not going to do that.
I know they're not going to do that, Karl, but I also think
what
that...
is the judge going to do then?
No, but he's held within certain constraints, but he can also say, hey, you know, look at what happened last time. There were 1,000 people outside the courtroom. You know, let's be a little more reasonable and let's start changing things. It's a kind of a chipping away deal.
It is, but you know, I just would rather for him that he doesn't go through it. I think he ought to take a plea and try to minimize the cost to himself personally.
Do you know what?
Being a sacrificial lamb here.
But you know what, Karl? I don't think he can take a plea. My guess is that this has been his religion, his practice. Like I have a meditation practice. He smokes marijuana, you know, and that's kind of part of his physiology. If he took a plea and went on probation, they do things where they screen you, and if you smoke any marijuana for 2 months or whatever, it shows up in your fat cells, and then they go after you anyway.
It's a problem, and you know, I feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
Very bright guy, very you know. He's a good advocate for what is going on. I mean, he knows what's happening, but he's caught up in this thing, and he's probably going to be hurt by this, you know.
Well, it did, as bright as he is, it did hurt to hear that those list of questions. I mean, in terms of what the lawyer knows about how the judge thinks versus the individual defendant just walking in naively. All those questions, it did hurt to hear.
Yeah, that the DA didn't answer them and won't answer them, and Joe would have to make a motion to the court to require the DA to answer that, and the judge would deny it.
Right.
But I still say there is something that happens, this magical moment where people on all levels, either in their personal life or in their life as a judge or even a prosecutor, they do the right thing. It magically happens now and then. And then if you can be ready for that happening, to follow it up with also being brave and courageous in your own life, then I think we start to move the society towards health.
Here's an example. We've had how many foreclosures in the country in the past 3 years, would you say?
I don't know.
Yeah, what's the number?
And 10 or 20 million, I'm guessing now.
Okay.
But 10, 20 million.
Okay.
We've had 1 or 2 cases in which a judge has come forward to say, I'm not going to go through with this, and even though there's no opposition, I'm not going to grant this motion for default judgment because they didn't show that they owned the mortgage. One judge out of 5 or 10 million volunteered to do that. That's the kind of odds that you're looking at.
I understand, Karl, but what I'm saying is, in the case of Rick Simpson, he not only was lucky, he's continuing to move forward. 12,000 people marched in the streets of Prague on behalf of cannabis legalization. These little rinky-dink countries, I mean, that's not politically correct to say, but they can't join the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the United Nations. To get into the club of the modern countries, they have to make hemp illegal. So that's how this fraud starts to go around. But he won. You say he feels he lost. You say he won. Whatever he did,
Big victory. Big victory.
Yes, but he's following up that victory. Is what I'm saying.
It's comparable in terms of dollar amount. It's comparable to BP being fined $2,000.
Well, in addition, I don't know if you heard this part, Karl, but privately, in Rick Simpson's case, the judge did acknowledge to him that he was under political pressure and this is the best he could do. So there was that going on.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that he took that victory, whether he sees it as a victory or not. The reason he doesn't see it as a victory, Karl, is because he wants other people to be able to use the oil, to make the best quality oil, which means access to a lot of fine product that, you know, fetches a high price on the illegal market for all the reasons that you're saying, that the war on drugs is really about a mafia being in place. That's why he sees it not as a victory.